his dream. It was like the nightmare scene from a B-list horror movie. I guess arriving at night in the middle of a rainstorm didn't help either. I pulled in beside the only vehicle I saw and ran inside the hotel that looked like a saloon out of an old western. I barely got the door closed until there was a light and a gun shoved in my face. "Who the heck are you?" said a voice behind the glare of the flashlight. "Jones, I was called in to help with the worker problem." The light lowered, but the gun stayed. "What company do you work for?" "Sentinel Security." I saw the man relax a little, but mostly I was happy that he had lowered the gun. In the best of times, a gun in a situation is less than ideal. All kinds of accidents can happen. I've seen many innocent bystanders fall victim to contagious gunfire. The man stepped over to a table and sat. As I looked around the room, I was surprised at how much it looked like a movie set from an old western. Right down to the lit lanterns and the tables and hanging from the rafters. He beckoned me over and I sat across from him. "Judging by the welcome, I'm guessing the workers aren't the only ones who were scared," I said. He looked at the gun and then laid it on the table. He seemed to be in his 40s or 50s, but there was a tiredness in his eyes. He looked wary and haggard. Truth be told, I'm not even sure a gun would do any good. "Maybe you should tell me when the trouble started." He looked at me and I could see worry tugging at his eyes. "Your contract's open, right?" I nodded. "Which means you have to finish the job or you don't get paid, right?" I nodded again. He looked me over for a long moment and then sat back, drained his glass of amber-colored liquid and sighed. "I bought this town a while back. Recently, with the passing of my wife, I decided I needed to throw myself into a project to keep me busy. I wanted to revitalize this town and turn it into a tourist attraction. I'm sorry for your loss." He nodded in recognition, but never said another word about her. "Things were going along smoothly," he said. "The buildings you see have all been restored. Yeah, they look good. You should have seen them when we started," he scoffed. "They were falling apart. Nobody had lived here for years, and that's why I was able to buy the whole place for next to nothing. I'm thinking that's not the only reason." "Yes," he said as a haunted look passed through his eyes. "We saved the church for last because it needed the most work. But once they started remodeling is when things began to happen." Things. There wasn't much at first. Shovels and saws would go missing. Tools would be left in fine order at night, only to be in complete disarray in the morning. For a while, the workers blamed each other, saying that there was a prankster among them. But that wasn't the case. Oh, how I wish it was. I waited for a long moment for him to continue. "We found the first body shortly after that," he said so quietly that I barely heard him. "Of a worker." He nodded. "Dead." He nodded again. "Why didn't you stop everything and leave?" Because it was already too late. We had disturbed it." "Disturbed what?" He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. He shook his head and looked away. For a moment, I could swear that I saw a tear run down his cheek. "I'm sorry," he said, rubbing his palms on his face. "Let me take you to your room and we'll discuss this further in the morning." My curiosity wanted him to finish the story, but it seemed like his wariness had been amplified by alcohol. I followed him as he carried the lantern up the stairs to the first door and opened it for me. He handed me the light and told me the bathroom was across the hall if I needed it. "I'll be here bright and early in the morning to give you the dollar tour," he said, sounding more like a host. "Aren't you staying here tonight?" His eyes flashed a genuine fear. "Not here," he said. "I'll be back in the morning." I looked around the comfortable-looking room, trying to decide what was so wrong with it as he stepped to the door. "Oh, by the way," he said, stopping at the doorway. "Don't bother with your cell phone. There's no signal up here." my phone, and when I looked up, he was gone. I picked up the lantern and stepped to the doorway, but I didn't hear him leaving. You would have thought somebody walking out on a hardwood floor would make some noise, but it was silent. The only noise that I heard was the rain pelting against